She believed nothing and no one could ever touch her until one quiet moment inside a luxury restaurant proved that money can buy many things, but respect is not one of them. The lesson she learned that night did not come loudly or violently. It came calmly, carefully, and in front of everyone she believed she ruled. The evening rush at Donovan's, a high-end restaurant in San Diego, was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft golden glow over polished wooden tables. Each table was dressed in crisp white linen and shining silver, ware that reflected the warm light. The air carried the scent of carefully prepared dishes and expensive wine. Waiters moved with precise steps, balancing trays of beautifully plated meals. Their shoes made quiet sounds against the marble floor, adding to the smooth rhythm of the restaurant. Among the diners was a group of 3 women seated near the center of the room. Their laughter floated above the low hum of conversation. Other guests glanced their way, some curious, others slightly annoyed. At the head of the table sat Evelyn Monroe. She was a woman whose presence demanded attention without her ever asking for it. Evelyn was not just wealthy. She displayed her wealth openly and proudly. A diamond necklace rested perfectly against her collarbone, sparkling each time she moved. A luxury watch peeked from beneath the cuff of her tailored blazer. Her hair was styled flawlessly, her makeup was subtle but expensive. With a perfectly manicured hand, she lifted her wine glass and took a slow sip, her eyes drifting across the room as if she were judging whether the space was worthy of her. To Evelyn, life was arranged in levels. There were people at the top and people at the bottom. In her mind, she sat firmly above everyone else. Tonight, she believed the restaurant existed for her enjoyment alone. At the far end of the room, a young waitress moved carefully between tables. Her name tag read Emily, though it was partly hidden by the dark fabric of her uniform. She carried herself with quiet determination, but exhaustion showed in her movements. Emily had been working double shifts for weeks. Every extra dollar she earned went into savings for college. Her feet ached, her shoulders were tight. Still, she focused on her job, determined to get through the night without mistakes. As she set down a tray of glasses at a nearby table, Emily stumbled slightly. She caught herself before anything fell, but the small moment did not go unnoticed. Evelyn saw it and smirked. To her, people like Emily barely existed. That is, until they made a mistake. Then they became targets. The night shifted the moment Emily arrived at Evelyn's table. She carefully placed the plates in front of the women and spoke softly. "Here you are, ladies. I hope you enjoy your meals." Her voice trembled just a little, but her politeness did not waver. Evelyn looked down at her plate as if it had personally offended her. She raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Excuse me," she said sharply, "is this supposed to be medium rare? It looks closer to well done, and why did it take so long? We have been waiting forever." Emily blinked, caught off guard. "I am so sorry, ma'am. Let me take this back and fix it right away." "Oh, spare me the apology," Evelyn interrupted. Her voice cut through the air. Her friends exchanged amused looks, enjoying the moment. "It is not that hard to get an order right." "Or is it?" Emily's cheeks flushed red. The surrounding tables grew quiet. The tension hung heavy in the air. But in a quiet corner of the restaurant, a man in a simple gray suit watched everything unfold. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes did not leave the scene. Emily lifted the plate carefully, her hands shaking. "I will have this fixed immediately," she said politely and turned toward the kitchen. "Unbelievable," Evelyn muttered loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Do they hire anyone these days? Honestly, how hard is it to carry a plate without looking like you will drop it?" Her friends laughed openly. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, enjoying the attention. "It is like she thinks smiling will earn her a tip. I should report her for ruining the whole evening." At the kitchen door, Emily paused, her grip tightened on the plate. Her eyes burned, but she refused to let the tears fall. She had faced rude customers before, but something about Evelyn's calm cruelty cut deeper than usual. From his table, the man in the gray suit continued to observe. His fingers tapped slowly against his glass. Every movement was measured, thoughtful, deliberate. Back at Evelyn's table, the comments continued. "Did you see how she walks?" Evelyn scoffed, "like she is barely holding herself together. If she cannot handle a place like this, she should work somewhere more suitable, like flipping burgers." Other diners shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered to their companions. A nearby couple exchanged looks and shook their heads. But Evelyn either did not notice or did not care. Emily returned moments later with a freshly prepared plate. She placed it gently in front of Evelyn. "Here you are, ma'am. The chef remade it. I hope this meets your expectations." Evelyn glanced at the plate briefly and shrugged. "I suppose it will do. Next time, try to get it right the first time, and learn how to carry yourself. You represent this restaurant, and honestly, you are doing a poor job." Emily forced a smile. "Of course, ma'am. I will do my best." As Emily walked away, Evelyn turned back to her friends, grinning. "It amazes me how people can be so incompetent and still think they deserve respect." At that exact moment, the man in the gray suit stood up. His movements were calm and controlled. He walked toward the bar where the restaurant manager stood nearby. He leaned in and spoke quietly. The manager listened closely. His eyes widened slightly. His expression shifted from curiosity to concern. Evelyn continued chatting, unaware that anything had changed. The manager nodded respectfully, then watched as the man returned to his seat. Evelyn lifted her wine glass again. "Oh, the Maldives were stunning," she said. "Private villas, perfect service, not like what we have seen tonight." Her friends laughed again. Across the room, Emily focused on restocking glasses, her hands still trembling. She avoided looking toward Evelyn's table. She had learned how to lock away her emotions during shifts, but tonight was harder than usual. When Evelyn finally asked for the check, the air in the restaurant changed. The manager approached the table, accompanied by Emily. He carried a tray with a bottle of champagne and an envelope. Evelyn raised her eyebrow, pleased. "Compliments of the house," the manager said. Evelyn's friends gasped with delight. Evelyn leaned back smugly. About time someone recognized good customers. But then the manager continued. "This gesture comes directly from the owner. He has been observing your experience tonight." Evelyn froze slightly. The owner, before she could respond, the man in the gray suit stepped forward. The room fell silent. "Yes, the owner," he said calmly. "My name is Charles Donovan, and this is my restaurant." Evelyn's confident smile slowly faded. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. The room felt suddenly smaller, tighter, as every diner turned their attention toward the table she once believed she controlled. "Oh, Mr. Donovan," Evelyn said finally. "I did not realize." Her voice trailed off as she searched for something graceful to say, but nothing came. Charles Donovan stood calmly beside the table. He did not raise his voice. He did not look angry. His presence alone carried authority. He gestured gently toward Emily, who stood quietly at the manager's side, her hands clasped in front of her. "Emily happens to be my niece," Charles said evenly. "She is one of the hardest working people I know. I take great pride in having her as part of my team." The color drained from Evelyn's face. Her friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The laughter from earlier was gone, replaced with awkward silence. Charles continued speaking, his tone steady. "I could not help but overhear how you spoke to her tonight. I understand that mistakes happen, but there is a way to address them with respect." Evelyn opened her mouth as if to defend herself, but Charles leaned slightly forward, stopping her without a word. "Money can buy luxury," he said calmly. "It can buy fine food, beautiful places, and comfort. But it does not give anyone the right to belittle people who work hard to provide those things." His words hung heavy in the air. They were not shouted, yet they carried more weight than anger ever could. The restaurant was completely silent. Forks paused midair. Conversation stopped. Every diner was listening. Evelyn's hands trembled as she held her wine glass. Her carefully polished confidence cracked under the pressure. For the first time that evening, she avoided eye contact. Charles straightened and looked around the room. "Respect is the foundation of this restaurant," he said. "Respect for the chefs, respect for the servers. Respect for every person who works here. Without them, there is no experience to enjoy." One of Evelyn's friends cleared her throat nervously. "I am sure Evelyn did not mean any harm," she said weakly. Charles tilted his head slightly. "Intent does not erase impact," he replied. "Words have power. When used carelessly, they can cause real harm." He turned toward Emily. "Emily, you handled yourself with grace and professionalism tonight. I am proud of you." Emily blinked back tears and nodded. She could not speak, but her gratitude was clear. Charles then turned back to Evelyn. "I could ask you to leave and never return," he said calmly. "But I believe there is a better lesson to learn." Evelyn's eyes widened slightly. He gestured toward the champagne bottle on the table. "This was meant as a gesture of goodwill. Instead, I will be donating its value, along with your entire tab tonight, to a local organization that supports young women working toward their education." Soft murmurs spread across the room. Some diners nodded. Others exchanged approving glances. Evelyn finally spoke. "Mr. Donovan, I think this is a bit extreme. I did not mean to." Charles raised a hand gently. "This is not punishment, Mrs. Monroe. It is accountability. I hope you take this moment to reflect on the kind of legacy you wish to leave behind." Evelyn stared down at her hands. Her friends sat silently, unsure how to react. Charles stepped back and addressed the room once more. "Let this be a reminder. Kindness costs nothing, but it can mean everything. You never know who is watching or what someone else is carrying." Soft applause filled the restaurant. It was not loud or dramatic. It was genuine. Evelyn remained frozen in her seat. Her world had shifted. She was no longer untouchable. Charles turned to Emily. "Take a short break. You have earned it." Emily nodded and walked toward the kitchen. Her shoulders felt lighter, her steps steadier. The restaurant slowly returned to its rhythm, but something had changed. Guests whispered about what they had seen. Some smiled kindly at Emily when she returned. Others left larger tips than usual. Evelyn and her friends sat quietly. No one spoke. The food remained untouched. At the back of the restaurant, Emily leaned against the wall, breathing deeply. The manager approached her with a warm smile. "You handled that beautifully," he said. Emily nodded. "Thank you. I did not think anyone noticed." "They noticed," he replied, "especially Mr. Donovan." Charles returned to his seat, sipping water as if nothing extraordinary had happened. A few patrons stopped by his table to thank him quietly. "You do not see that often anymore," one man said. Charles smiled faintly. It was not about standing up. It was about reminding ourselves to be better. As Evelyn stood to leave, she avoided looking at anyone. Her confident walk had turned into a slow shuffle. At the door, she paused and glanced back at the room she once believed she ruled. She looked smaller. Quieter. Inside, Emily returned to work with a renewed sense of dignity. The lesson lingered long after the doors closed. The rest of the evening at Donovan's continued, but nothing felt the same. Conversations resumed slowly. Plates were cleared, glasses were refilled, yet beneath the familiar rhythm of the restaurant, something deeper lingered. People were not talking about the food or the wine anymore. They were talking about what they had witnessed. Some guests leaned toward their companions, speaking in low voices. Others simply sat quietly, reflecting. The moment had reached everyone in the room, even those who had not been paying attention at first. Evelyn and her friends remained seated for several minutes after the applause faded. No one reached for their food, no one joked. The confident energy that once surrounded their table had completely vanished. One of her friends finally broke the silence. "Maybe we should go," she said carefully. Evelyn nodded without looking up. She stood slowly, smoothing her blazer with trembling hands. Her movements were no longer sharp or assured. They were cautious, almost unsure. As they walked toward the exit, eyes followed them, not with anger, not with pity, but with quiet understanding. Evelyn kept her gaze fixed on the floor, her cheeks still flushed. At the door, she stopped briefly and glanced back at the dining room. This space that once felt like her stage now felt unfamiliar, smaller. She swallowed hard and stepped outside. The cool night air hit her face. She stood on the sidewalk as her friends tried to comfort her with empty words. It was not fair. He went too far. You did not mean it. But Evelyn barely heard them. For the first time in a long time, she stood alone with her thoughts. No assistant, no admirer, no one impressed by her status, just silence and the uncomfortable weight of reflection. Inside the restaurant, Emily returned from her break. Her posture was straighter. Her smile came easier. Patrons looked at her differently now. They saw more than a waitress. They saw strength. A couple waved her over to thank her for her service. Another table left a generous tip with a kind note. Emily blinked back tears again, but this time they were different. These were tears of relief. The manager watched from a distance, pride clear on his face. Not everyone could handle that kind of pressure with grace. Emily had. Charles Donovan remained seated near the window, watching the restaurant settle back into its flow. He did not seek praise. He did not linger on the moment. He believed lessons mattered more when they were not forced. An older gentleman stopped by his table on the way out. "You reminded us of something important tonight," he said. Charles nodded politely. "We all need reminders sometimes," he replied. As the night drew to a close, staff members cleaned tables and stacked chairs. The energy was calm, thoughtful. Something had shifted, not just for one person, but for many. Emily finished her shift later than usual. As she changed out of her uniform, she paused for a moment, looking at her reflection. She still had a long road ahead, college bills, long hours, hard days. But she also had something else now, confidence. Charles locked the front door after the last guest left. He stood for a moment in the quiet dining room, empty tables, dimmed lights. He felt no satisfaction in humiliating anyone. Only hope that the message had landed where it needed to. Outside, Evelyn walked slowly toward her car. The city lights blurred slightly as her thoughts raced. For years, she believed power meant control. That respect was owed to her simply because of who she was. Tonight shattered that belief. She replayed Charles's words in her mind. Intent does not erase impact, legacy, accountability. She did not know yet if she would change. Growth was uncomfortable, reflection was painful, but something had cracked open and it would not easily close again. Back inside Donovan's, Emily laughed quietly with a coworker as they finished closing tasks. The sound was light, genuine. The lesson of the night would not appear in headlines. There would be no viral clip, no applause beyond those walls, but it mattered, because real change does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes calmly, through words spoken with care, through dignity upheld, through a reminder that how we treat others defines who we truly are. Wealth fades, status shifts, power changes hands. But kindness leaves a mark that lasts far longer, and on one ordinary night inside a restaurant filled with strangers, one woman learned she was not untouchable, one young waitress found her strength, and everyone watching was reminded of a simple truth. Respect is not something you buy, it is something you give. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who may need the reminder. Kindness still matters, and sometimes the quietest moments teach the loudest lessons.